Sure.
Okay, it's recording.
Thank you.
Craig, how many participants are you expecting?
According to Michelle, we had over 100 register. Right now, we've got 35 in the room.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Last night, we only had about 50% actually participate of the registers, of the ones that registered, only about 50% actually logged in.
I see we have Dennis Serpa with us. Is that right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I thought I saw Dennis Serpa.
Dennis is on, and he'll be presenting for the membership committee during the second half of the time tonight.
Great. Okay. I just wanted to say hi to Dennis.
Craig, this is Victor with East Tennessee. I assume if you're recording tonight that last night's was recorded. We had a chapter meeting. I wasn't able to attend it. I'm wondering if there might be a link so I could go and review the recorded session if it was.
Michelle, did you record?
It was recorded. We do not have that link available yet. However, I can send you the presentation itself until we can get that uploaded someplace.
Okay, that'd be great. And then I'll look forward to the URL too so I could catch up. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And I'll also be linking to that presentation in the education resources list. All righty, well, it's 6 minutes after. We don't have anybody else signing on. So Greg, take it away. I think he just walked. There he is. There he is.
Sorry about that. I'm back now.
Okay. Well, you've got 36 people in the room, so press ahead.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. I am Greg Schatz, the chair of the newly formed BCHA Youth Program. Thank you for joining us this evening as we talk about building confidence through opportunities to empower the next generation of the backcountry horsemen. My wife Deborah and I are in a unique position. We joined the backcountry horsemen of the Flathead in the mid-'80s when we were in our 20s. There aren't many members who joined in their 20s and are still active when they're nearly 60. At that time, I had no idea that one day I would be moderating a panel discussion about retaining young members for BCHA on a webinar throughout the US. We are all joining you from different places in Montana this evening. For all of us on the panel, our favorite place to be is on the back of a horse, high up in the mountains, as far from a screen or other people as we can get. If we look scared this evening, we are. If you have questions during the discussion, please use the chat feature and we'll see if we can answer them. Our panelists and I have been talking about this subject as a group for about a year and a half. Thank you for the opportunity to share our ideas. Our panelists this evening are Allie Pike. Allie lives near Whitefish and belongs to the backcountry horsemen of the Flathead. She makes her living as a carpenter and an artist. Allie spent a lot of time in high school and college barrel racing and riding trails. Since completing her degree in wildlife and fisheries, she spent 5 years working on the trails in the mountains, including a year with the Montana Conservation Corps and 2 summers as a crew leader for the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. Allie loves riding fast horses, skiing deep powder, and climbing rugged mountains. Allie rides my young horses for me and is working on getting her own string. You can see her artwork at alliepikedesigns.com. Ellie?
Hello.
Ellie is a member of the Backcountry Horsemen of the Flathead, and this evening she is joining us from saddle building school. Ellie is a packer who has the good fortune to live with her pack string on her family homestead in the Flathead Valley alongside her parents and grandmother. Ellie doesn't remember not having horses, and she has become very proficient at packing. Unfortunately, she never had the chance to talk about packing with her grandfather, who was also a packer in the Bob and Glacier National Park. Ellie is the recipient of the 2019 Backcountry Horsemen of Montana Scholarship to the Bob Marshall Wilderness Outfitters Packing Skills class. A month ago, Ellie was awarded the 2020 Packer of the Year honor for the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. You can find Ellie's business, Ease Tack Cleaning and Repairs, on Facebook. Marion.
Hi, everybody.
Marion Wilmus is a member of the Missoula Backcountry Horsemen and lives in Camas Prairie. I've known Marion since she was born. While looking through some old pictures a while back, I found one of Marion riding one of our horses when she was 3. She probably has more first rides on colts than anyone I know. Her mother has been raising horses for nearly 40 years. Guess who puts the first rides on them? If I remember right, at one time they were running about 30 head. Marion has her own string of horses, and this past summer she was a wildlands firefighter for the Forest Service. In about 2 weeks, she will graduate with 2 degrees, one in resource conservation, the other in biology. She plans to work with people living in the wildlands interface surrounding the wilderness. She has taken most of her classes in the wild country of Montana. Marion also rides my young horses for me, and Marion is the recipient of the 2017 BCHMT Scholarship to the Bob Marshall Wilderness Outfitters Packing Skills class. Melissa.
Hi.
This is Melissa Nino. She is a member of the Missoula Backcountry Horsemen. With degrees in biology and conflict resolution, Melissa took up being a range rider. She has lived, rode horses, and chased cows in some of the most beautiful and wild places in Montana, intimately learning every drainage and peak of places like the Centennial Valley, Ruby Valley, and Tom Minor Basin. Melissa writes, "Out in these wild landscapes, there is no insulating myself from discomfort. It allows me to feel and teaches me to survive. Yet exploring each of these areas has given me a sense of place and allowed me to connect to my home in ways that most people never will. The time I have spent in these open, wild places has taught me how much I value those communities, both wild and human, and helping them to thrive." Melissa is the recipient of the 2018 BCHMT Scholarship, the Bob Marshall Wilderness Outfitters Packing Skills class. She makes her living as an artist while living on a ranch outside of Potomac with her horse Willa. You can see her artwork at melissadenino.com or on Facebook. All 5 of us choose to live close to the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex, Glacier National Park, and the surrounding wild country. With nearly 3 million acres of wildland to ride in, this is our backcountry. We talk about the Bob because we all use it extensively. Your backcountry, regardless of its location or size, is just as important as ours is. We also talk about packing because this is how we enjoy our stock. We always need to remember that anyone who wants to perpetuate the common sense use of horses in the backcountry is welcome in BCH, regardless of what they do with their stock, or even if they don't have stock. Our BCH youth program is very aware that not everyone has the opportunity to pack. We are focused on welcoming youth to our ranks, regardless of where they ride or what their backcountry experience is. My wife Deborah and I were in our 20s when we joined BCH. We are now retiring. The reason we joined BCH is because the woman who owned Outfitter Supply was the president of the local chapter. If you belong to Backcountry Horsemen, you got a 10% discount at their store, and family memberships were $7 then. And so it was way cheaper to belong to Backcountry Horsemen than to pay full price. We had no idea at the time how joining BCH would shape our lives. Often BCH members ask me about a single program or clinic that will get young people to join our ranks and be active members. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet nor magic spell that we can cast. We get young people to ride with us by recognizing their fears, providing opportunities for them to build confidence so they can be part of our community. We need to remember that the words we use matter and how we treat others matters. I've rode and packed my string of horses somewhere in the neighborhood of 25,000 miles in the Bob and surrounding backcountry. It all started with the first project we ever went on with BCH. To say I was terrified when I pulled into the Meadow Creek trailhead would be an understatement. I was in my 20s, and Craig is going to put a picture of my trailer up there that we pulled into the trailhead in. I was riding my 3-year-old horse, Dusty, and Deborah was riding her 4-year-old horse, Cisco. These were range horses. They were not well-trained nor high dollar, but it's what we could afford. They retired after nearly 20,000 miles on the trail. We pulled into the trailhead with this trailer, and Molly Boysen came to greet us. When you're in your 20s, Molly looked like an old woman. She had started packing in the Bob when she was 10. At this time, she was about 70. She showed us where to camp, and she said she was going on a ride and she was going to saddle up her horse, and that we were able to join her. I'm sure the reason she went to saddle up her horse and for us to join her was to be nice to us. I doubt she actually was going on a ride. The next day, a fellow named Clyde Peterson offered that we could go with him to help clear the trail to Black Bear. Clyde had been an outfitter in the Bob for nearly 40 years. Looking back again, there was no reason for him to invite us. There was probably 10 people on that clearing that particular trail. And there were maybe 2 logs we cut the entire day. But he took us with us. It was the first time we passed the wilderness sign. I've passed the wilderness sign thousands of times in my life since then. So as I was terrified of going into Meadow Creek that time, Ellie brought it up this summer about her fear the first time she went to Meadow Creek.
Yeah, I was pretty scared. It's sort of like the big deal in our backcountry horseman group is to go into Meadow Creek. It's the first project, and I was really nervous because I hadn't done anything with backcountry horsemen before, but I'd been invited, and my background is in hunter jumper horses, so I was like, I don't know if my horses will be okay for this. So I went without any of my horses, and what was really defining for me that made me keep coming back to backcountry horsemen was that I was welcomed even though I didn't have a horse, even though I was this weird girl who showed up without a horse to the backcountry horseman deal. And I went out and I cut some trees on foot, and I came back the next year knowing what was expected of me, and it was and people were happy to see me with my horses the next year. This last season we packed in, and I brought my mule and I packed all the saws, which was pretty fun.
Marion, would you like to jump in?
Well, I guess, you talked about like recruiting, and that just makes me think of how, so I'm 22 right now, and for especially the past few years where I've lived in Montana, Greg has pretty much tried to get me out and into the woods on every single event or occasion that he possibly can. Everything from watching or participating in ski touring events or I haven't participated, but like anything, any opportunity, he just tries to get me outside. And I'm busy a lot, and I feel bad for saying no, that I can't go to some things, but that doesn't stop him from asking me again and again and again.
Yeah, what I think I have really appreciated about our chapter is that we'll get these little reminders and check-ins like, I know you guys are busy, but we're doing XYZ. Would you like to join? And that little bit of extra communication really helps, because Marian is totally right in that things are very busy. Often at this in early 20s, I've had to move a couple times just because I'm not owning a place yet. I'm lucky now that I do get to live in a place that I own, but there's just a lot going on. And those little reminders from the chapters are really helpful. And from people like Greg and Deb, who are really make sure that we're included.
And you'll notice when I introduced everybody, they all have two things going on. 2 jobs, a job in school, two college degrees. Marion's running 22 credits this semester, I'm sorry. And she had 21 or 22 last semester. Marion also talked the other night about like getting out of college and like her life fears, like, is she doing the right thing? Would you like to explain that a little bit, Marion?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think I'm trying to remember my train of thought, but it kind of goes with being busy. But so this is a weird year, as everyone knows. So school, I go to the University of Montana, and graduation, I graduate at the end of this semester, and graduation is like around Thanksgiving, because the semester ends at Thanksgiving. And like, especially right now, there's just like this feeling of, gosh, what am I gonna do next? I've kind of tacked down doing some like seasonal summer work, but past that, like, and sometimes, like if I work during the summer, it's difficult to find time to get involved with horses. I'm really lucky that my mom has horses that I can come mess with at any time of year in any season. But it's difficult to juggle tasks and to not always have the time that you want to spend doing the things that you love, like horsepacking or going into the wilderness. And I mean, Greg talks about how he completely prioritized horses and getting into the backcountry, which means that, Greg, what do you say? It's something like, when you talk about your work, what is it you always say? Something about you've never held a full-time job.
Haven't had a full-time job in 30 years.
Exactly. But I don't know. It's difficult to get to that point sometimes. It takes a lot of prioritization and a lot of things to make things happen.
I think jumping on what Marion's saying, it's so important to remember, especially when right now, our chapter is filled with members who may have recently retired, so they have all this time to go packing. And there's some people like Greg and I who were just like, you know what, we're gonna pack all summer, and we're super lucky to be able to do that. And there's some people that's just not feasible. But if they only go on one project per year, that means like they're going to keep their skills up, they're going to enjoy it, they're going to help, and then when they do retire, they're going to be ready to jump right in. So I think is that sort of where you're going, Marion?
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of this sentiment of like being invited in and having events to attend, even if I can't always make it. It's not lost on me. I really, really have appreciated all of the generosity and support that I've received from backcountry horsemen so far. And I feel bad the times that I can't go out. Yeah.
Allie?
I agree. A lot of my past few years has been very, am I echoing? I can't tell.
No, you're doing good.
Okay. a lot of the past few years has been Greg egging me on to go out all the time with him on every single weekend. And I'm like, I can't, I have to do 5, 10, 15 different things this weekend. But for every 20 times I can't come, there's one time, and that one time does make a huge like impact on me. And it's so awesome to have that. And having the I don't know, consistency of being able to be invited to something like that also gives a sense of trust and like desire to like get people involved and get youth involved. And that reflects a lot. And I really appreciate that. I also have no money or time to have horses. So it's great when I can come over here and just ride Greg's horses. It's a great trade-off.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think the common thread with all of us is just having that person who continually invites us and makes us feel welcome, no matter what we've got going on. Like this year, I feel like I hardly made it into the backcountry, even when I tried to plan to, but I was always invited, and just having the opportunity to go and to feel welcome, it keeps it on your mind and keeps you wanting to go back.
So dealing with our fairs then leads to opportunity. And so one of the questions on chat was, how did you all get invited for the first time? Like, what was your first opportunity with the Backcountry Horsemen? Would you like to start, Melissa?
Sure. So the first time I ever did anything with Backcountry Horsemen was actually when I received the scholarship for the packing course. And I went on that and was fortunate. I feel like with anyone, like we say, like there's no single opportunity or silver bullet to get folks involved, but the first opportunity that someone does try to get involved can be make or break. And I was really fortunate that I was with a great group of people, and we were all at the same like level trying to learn how to pack in the backcountry. Like I had skills riding, I'd worked as a range rider, I'd been in the backcountry by myself, but never with a group or with any organization. And I had met so many people who were involved with Backcountry Horsemen at this packing class, and people who are great friends to this day. And I think having that community to kind of go back to, even if we don't get to ride together every summer, just having that community there has made a huge difference for me. And it made me want to be involved. And like each time I'd go to, like after the packing class, then Greg reached out to me and tried getting me involved more and was inviting me. And so just like continually got opportunities after that to get involved, and really appreciated the community that I was meeting, and the growing community was really nice as well. So,
and
yeah.
One thing I want to add to that, Melissa, and this is for everybody out there, I had never met Melissa, and I called her, and it was a gamble. And so just as scared as they are, the fear coming in, I also have to like address that fear calling them. Allie?
So my exposure to the backcountry horsemen started through trail work, and a lot of it was just by ear. Like I heard this and I heard that and small things. And that's kind of when I started keeping my ears open, because I love riding horses, and I had been doing trail work the past few years and never really had time to do anything else. So I'd actually met Greg at, I think it was a dinner for the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. And I saw him and I had heard that he rides horses. So I went up to him, big, tall cowboy with a cowboy hat, said, I want to ride horses. I heard you ride horses. Can I do it? And he was like, yeah, sure. And it probably looked a little weird to him to have this like tiny 5-foot human coming up to him saying, hey, I'm going to ride horses with you. It's pretty bold. But it was also just, a very simple, like, I don't know what else to do, but just go up to this horse person and ask. And that was scary for sure. And I'm sure Greg was terrified of me, but it was a good first step. And I got into more trail work, and I didn't really have time to do a lot of riding until a little bit into the winter. We got into ski joring. And then a lot of the next year was just when I couldn't get out, go with them, him and Deb. And that was pretty awesome to have. Ellie, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I can talk briefly about, like, I grew up in the scene where, like, backcountry horsemen was sort of on the side. They'd have like booths up at horse shows, so I sort of knew about them, but it sort of always seemed like something that I wouldn't be a part of, because I did jumping, and I did love trail riding, but I didn't think I was hardcore enough. But I started seeing pictures of packing and becoming very interested in that. And there was a free clinic that the Backcountry Horseman of the Flathead was putting on, and I went, and it was pretty scary. It was very cold. It was like the middle of winter in an indoor arena, and I was interested, and I went to another packing clinic. And then I signed up for the packing class goes through our community college and has a scholarship through the Backcountry Horsemen of Montana or the Flathead. I can't remember right now. And I met Greg there, who was teaching, and I felt so welcomed to come on rides. And I also applied for the scholarship that's a week-long packing class through Backcountry Horsemen of Montana. And that really boosted my confidence going on that packing class when I won that scholarship. And having that all sort of combine at the right time really gave me that great sense of community, like Melissa was talking about how this group is pretty amazing on what they can accomplish, and made me really want to be part of it.
Yeah.
I can add to that too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Air.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say that, like, I've got a pretty similar story to all three of you, in that, well, so I guess, like, the first exposure I had to horse packing was, I haven't lived in Montana my whole life, but my whole life Deb and Greg have lived in Montana. And because they're friends with my mother, I kind of had this like far away like concept of what horse packing was, and then it was so cool and so wild, and that Deb and Greg did it. But I moved to Montana my senior year of high school, and rather than joining the high school, I just homeschooled until graduation. And the summer after my senior year of high school, Deb and Greg took me and my mother into the Bob Marshall, and it was like a 5 or a 6 day trip, and I was probably out of riding shape and dehydrated and a little sunburned, but extremely happy the entire time. And it just made such an impression on me. So that way, when I went into my freshman year of college, I ended up signing up for Smoke Elser's packing class in the Rattlesnake that spring. And then from there, I applied, with much reminder and much emphasis from Greg, of course, to apply for the Mac and Connie Long's pack trip, which is the same one that we're all talking about. So I think if there's anything in there, it's that constant outreach helps a lot, and the scholarships help a ton, because I don't know, the scholarships just leave such an impression too. It tells us that, you know, like, you want us there and that we're important, and it kind of takes the stress off of us, because if we don't have to find the money to figure out how to go and do it, that's probably the biggest thing preventing us from getting into it to begin with. But I don't know. Allie, you still wanted to say something.
Yeah, I I had a quick story with my first year in Montana. I was doing trails with MCC, and I had heard about the backcountry horsemen out of Helena, which was like a group of just a few men, I think. And they had cleared a trail for us in the Gates of the Wilderness. And I remember thinking like, holy crap, y'all are crazy, because where we were was cliffs and rocks. And we were really grateful. That was a lasting impression. And then even past that, we had a youth group with us, and they had never heard of people, men and women on horses going out to clear the trails. They had like never heard of that, even though a lot of these kids have been in Montana their whole life. And so even those small little projects with just a few people made such an impact on probably 20 of us. And that was a big thing. That I think is the first step to getting youth involved, because I think there's a lot of what we see and hear in the air almost. That's where it can start, is just by ear.
I also want to do a quick shout out to, we're talking a lot about Mac and Connie Long's packing scholarship and other packing classes. And I feel like we're having quite good success with our youth packing classes for 12 to 17-year-olds, that we get a lot of kids that come back multiple times. We have people from out of state that would like to come and pack. And as soon as the word gets out, every parent that I've talked to would love to have their kids go on such a confidence building journey, whether or not they become packers and have their own horses.
And so those of you whose chapters may not pack, that's okay. What this one summer camp that Ellie's referring to, the kids hike in 2 miles into the Bob. They meet at the trailhead. We have the Northern Region Pack String help us. We show them how to pack in an afternoon. The next day they load up all the camping gear and everything. The pack string goes in. The kids hike, they're teenagers. They hike 2 miles, and we spend the weekend in there. And then we do the same thing on the way out. And so it could be a single day event. It could be a 2 or 3 day camp out. And you don't necessarily have to do the packing. You could do horse skills, horse safety. There's games you could play.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I want to interject that we teach these kids about how to clear some trail, and we talk a lot about leave no trace, and then we also talk a lot about accessibility and just the amount of work it takes to get in. And all the kids that I have met that have done the program just seem to really enjoy it and get it.
And so I was given an opportunity at Meadow Creek that first year we were in Backcountry Horsemen. And that summer, so we went on that one project, and then we went on one BCH ride. And so that first summer, we came on 2 events. On that one BCHA ride, that was terrifying as well. And a guy named Lloyd Fagerlund befriended us. Lloyd had been the chair of BCHA, as well as newsletter editor and historian. And so someone, now realize, I think there were 7 states, maybe 9 states in BCHA at the time. So, it was smaller, but still having someone of that caliber befriend us was really, like, to me, it was really something. So we met Lloyd, and he was 58, which is what I am now. Shortly after we met him, he'd had a heart attack. And then shortly after that, he'd had a stroke. Lloyd had always talked to us about these big trips that he had dreams of taking after he retired. He never got to retire because of the heart attack and stroke. And so he was never able to go on these trips. We would go on day rides with him, but as far as I know, he spent one night in the woods after we had met him. But he always encouraged us to ride and don't wait. And because of his encouragement, we quit working full time. And so, like, you ask, how can we impact youth? Someone shows up for a project. Don't make them feel bad because they're not working 2 jobs, or don't make them feel bad because they don't have this $1 million house. The words we say to young people can really affect them. So that winter, Deborah gets elected as a delegate to the Backcountry Horseman Montana Convention for our chapter. And so we're going through the lunch line, and Deborah and I are the last ones in the lunch line, and we go to find a spot to sit, and there's only one table in the entire lunchroom that has empty seats on it. And Smoke Elser, Jim Broger, and Mike Chandler are sitting at that table. And Deb goes, let's go sit over there. And I go, no way, you don't know who those guys are. We can't sit with them. And I'm like, let's go sit over here. Oh, let's go stand over by this window. And Deb says, oh, come on, I'll ask. And we go over there, and they immediately introduce themselves to us. They include us in the rest of their lunch conversation. Jim Broger was the first chairman of BCHA. Those three had been friends their entire lives from their 20s, and now Jim just passed away. Smoke's 84. I don't know how old Mike is. There was no reason. We had nothing to offer them for them being kind to us. Smoke always, so in Montana, I'm not sure how the other states work. In Montana, we have a lot of like state meetings and Forest Service meetings, and Smoke would always encourage us to go to those meetings. And Backcountry Horseman always had a good number of people at these meetings. And every meeting I was at, Smoke would come and sit by me. So if you don't know Smoke Elser, he's a legendary packer in Montana. He outfitted for 50 some years. He taught a university packing class for 60 years. So in Montana, everybody knows him. So for years, that's what he did. We'd go to a packing clinic, he'd seek us out. It was his packing clinic he was putting on, and he'd come over and visit with us. He was making sure I was coming along. And because of that, I have become very politically involved, not partisan politics, but the politics of keeping horse use in the backcountry. So we always need to make sure that we give young people the opportunity
I'd like to jump in here and say that that's such an important part of Backcountry Horsemen that I didn't realize, is that at least the Backcountry Horsemen in Montana are really responsible for getting a lot of trail funding and increasing access to the wilderness, not just for horse users, but also hikers and backpackers. And it is, as someone just coming into this, there is like 100 years of Forest Service backstory into all of our wilderness areas that we love, or our parks. And it is very daunting, but it is very nice to have someone be like, here, why don't you come with me to this meeting, and then like explain some things afterwards, tell me what's going on. And it makes it so it feels like I could contribute to help with this project. And I think that is sort of the point with getting youth involved, is that we don't want all of our work to go to waste. And we'd like to be able to keep riding these trails as we retire.
I like what you said, Ellie, and I want to add that a lot of what Greg's saying too, it goes into the power of something that's familiar, and that's a huge part of getting youth involved, especially when it's something as big as this to somebody. A lot of times kids, and I mean youth can actually mean anything from 5 years old to 47 or 58, somebody. But I think there's a lot of fear that comes in putting yourself out there. And especially for me, even if it's just those little things that I've like seen this person there, heard that name, a lot of my involvement has become like, oh, I'm familiar with that person, I'm gonna go run to that person in this big group of people. And I went to a packing demonstration last fall, I think, and I only recognized a few people, and I ran to them. And that was a really like important thing for me. Instead of just standing over by the fence by myself awkwardly, I recognized a few people, and they had introduced themselves to a different type of clinic type thing. And yeah, there's a lot of power in even just like a nod or like an introducing yourself to a youth person. All of those little things add up and gain the trust of people just starting to get involved and, you know, curious about what are these people doing in the woods with their horses. All of those
And-
little things.
I think it's so important to start building that relationship and that is based that makes the person feel like they're an equal. Something that Smoke always does is always asks me about the trails I'm going on or what adventures I've had. And he's someone who's spent 60 years in the backcountry basically, and knowing that he wants to have that connection or remembers my name is a big deal, which really increases the confidence when people do start coming on trips. Like when I went to Meadow Creek, if I'd known someone there a little bit better, I probably would have brought a horse, because ultimately what I was afraid of is putting myself and my horse in a bad situation. And with that trust comes the confidence to say no, or to say, I'm not comfortable with this, which I think is really important to have around horses and saws and in our community.
Alyssa?
The thing that's coming to mind for me with like talking about, am I still on mute? Okay, no. Talking about meeting so many different people with backcountry horsemen, not only can it help increase people's confidence, but especially for the folks who don't have an easy in, that didn't grow up around horses, that like just don't have the means to like afford to have a horse right now or a trailer. Like it's a cool thing to be able to meet someone like Greg and hear his story about like horses came into his life and starting off with that trailer. Like it's very expansive, I think, for younger folks who like want to get into like riding horses into the backcountry. Just being able to hear everyone's unique stories and see the number of ways that it could be possible for that to happen.
Marion?
I've been listening to what everybody's saying long enough that I forgot was there a particular question that started this so I can make sure I'm answering it?
Well, I think the other night you brought up about empathy. Was that you?
I can't quite remember, but I can kind of say that something that comes to mind as we're talking about this is that if you give a young person a chance to get into something, or maybe somebody who isn't necessarily a youth anymore, but is new to the horse scene or new to the packing scene, is that when you give somebody an opportunity and it just sort of starts the brain turning in that direction and it introduces a whole new world, they might not jump and fully 100% commit to it like after one time they go. It might take a few years. It might take a whole life of them figuring out and planning how they're going to get the truck and the trailer and the horses and make it out and go to the meetings. So, and I just say that because that's kind of the position I'm in, of it's like, I know that it's a very important thing to me, but I can't just stop what I'm currently doing. I know that Greg invited me out. I can't remember. It was, I think, a trip that Allie and Greg, I think, went on. And there was that, you guys sent me that picture of that massive tree that was in the middle of the trail. And I didn't get a chance to go on that one, but my summer job was firefighting. So that week I worked 5 16-hour days, and it just wasn't going to happen. I was on an assignment. So, you know, and I enjoy hearing the story, and I really wish I was there, but sometimes it's just not possible to get out. But, you know, I want to keep getting invited.
By recognizing the fears young people have and providing opportunities for them to build confidence, they can be part of our community. In everything we do, they have to feel welcome. At one time at Meadow Creek, when I was made to feel welcome by Molly Boysen and Clyde Peterson, and at the convention when Smoke welcomed us, these times start to build the BCH community around me. Because of that community, I have the honor of being included in these two books that were published this year. A Wild Land Ethic, The Story of Wilderness Montana. There are 40 authors in this book. Apparently the publishers feel I'm one of the top 40 advocates for wildland in Montana. I would never consider that, but if you look at what Smoke imprinted in me 30 some years ago, the importance of not ignoring that issue. The other book is called The Heralds of the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and author John Fraley evidently considers Deborah and I one of the 12 heroes of the Bob. Without Clyde taking me past that wilderness sign, I never would have had the community or opportunity to be in this book. Of course, I mentioned BCH in both books, and without the community built around us by BCH, I doubt this would have ever happened. The one thing that hasn't changed in BCH over 30 years is how we treat others. One thing I have become very aware of over the past few years is that young people aren't going to hang around and put up with the rude comments that I did when I was that age. My wife Deborah and I were in our 20s when we joined BCH. There were a lot of inappropriate comments made and people saying things that never should have been said. A lot of the same thing is still happening today. I expect that with what I know today, if I were to go back, I would not have stayed a member of BCH. I know this is not just a Montana problem. I've been to a couple of national board meetings and I've heard the same words there. As an organization, I feel we need to change how we treat others. Words matter. If we use phrases like kids these days to degrade young people, they're not going to hang around. If we need to debate who is being too sensitive and who is not, they're not going to hang around. If we complain about the time young people spend using technology, they will not hang around. If men call women girls, they will not hang around. Women can call women girls. Men can never call women girls, ever. We had a member of our chapter send out an email to the entire chapter, and instead of referring to women as women, he referred to them as girls. Well, 2 hours later, a young lady who belonged to our chapter emailed in her resignation. A friend of mine who's in her mid-20s, her and her husband were at the trailhead where we were having a poker ride. There's another chapter in Montana, not my chapter, and they were trail running. But Greta has a horse, she rides in the mountains, she loves riding with us in the mountains. So I invited her to eat dinner with us after the poker ride. So we're all eating dinner at the barbecue and the food's good and everything. And one of the Backcountry Horseman members makes a lewd comment towards her and her face turns beet red. She doesn't say a word. And although I've ridden with her in the backcountry since then, she's never been to another Backcountry Horseman event. How important is it to you, Allie, to be treated with respect on these projects?
Well, so a lot of what I have noticed in the past few years, because I even myself at 27 have started trying to talk to younger kids to see how they are wanting to get involved with backcountry horsemen, things like that. So with my own experience and what I'm hearing from other kids too, what I think other generations consider sensitivity is actually intolerance. And that's a big thing that I want to express, because it's not that kids are being more sensitive, that it's a lack of tolerance. And so that comes from not wanting to put up with something, and that's when they walk off. And so where the communication can be improved on is what is going to improve trust in every single interaction that you have with every person in your life, but particularly if you're trying to get youth involved. If you're going to say something that you would say to your guy friends around a campfire, in your backyard, maybe think about something different to talk about in front of youth or people that you don't know, at a backcountry horseman event of any sort. And I think a lot of that goes with what can I say that's going to build trust, a very proactive communication style.
Yeah, I could definitely add to that too. I don't think it's just trust, but kind of the concept of mutual respect. Because I need to respect you if I'm going to learn from you. And you need to respect me if I'm going to learn from you. You know, and there's just so many things that can break down that respect, like, lewd comments. And, you know, you can only put up with so much before you just start blocking it out. So if you want young people to listen to you, then say things that you'd want them to hear.
Good point.
I don't want to make people feel like they can't say anything, but I think that when we are talking with new members, while that trust is being built, it really is important to remember like why we are backcountry horsemen. We care about wilderness, we care about wildlands, we care about accessibility, and those are excellent topics to have around the campfire. And it's a good time to tell stories about those things. And the backcountry horseman isn't a place for drinking or partying or saying comments without thinking about how other people feel.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think it's so important to take the time to build rapport with people, because it also will show you where those boundaries are. And once you have that friendship and trust, like, then you can expand upon the conversations, and you know where that boundary is, you know how to keep the conversation respectful, and that's going to keep people around.
And when we're up on our soapbox talking about this, often people my age will say, well, what can we say? So if you want to start a discussion with a new member, a young member, how about what kind of horses do you have? How about where do you like to ride? Have you been riding long? Have you been in the backcountry? Where's your favorite place to camp? A friend of mine the other day told me her first introduction with backcountry horsemen. Well, the third sentence out of the backcountry horseman member's mouth was, how come you're not at home having children? We can't be talking like that. There's a saying that goes, we need to watch our thoughts. They become your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Watch your actions. They become your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character. Watch your character. It becomes your destiny. What will the destiny of BCH be? Using the inclusive words is not about offending people, because everyone is so easily offended these days. Kind words are about recognizing that our world is much more complex than we have been treating it, and including those who have been excluded. I've spent my entire adult life being an active member of the Backcountry Horsemen. My adult life has indeed been charmed. Because of Lloyd Fagerland, I quit working full-time while I was in my 20s so I could ride. And ride I did, and still do. While riding high up in the mountains with my pack string coming along, I'm free. I would like to thank Allie, Ellie, Marion, and Melissa for sharing their thoughts this evening. Thank you, my friends, for taking the chance to help spread our message. I have one final thought to share. I truly believe that BCH is an outstanding organization. There have been massive changes in the past 30 years. We do a lot of things right, yet we have never been able to attract young people to join us. My challenge to you this evening is for you to make a conscious decision to be the leader in your chapter who steps up to change the tone of the conversation, to make sure everyone is welcome in our organization. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Here, here. So, yep, getting lots of thumbs up and applause there. That's good. And I think the key takeaway here is don't engage just once. Keep it going. Keep it constant contact. You'll never know when the right key will be hit. And lead easy.
There was another question asked. There is a significant equestrian population in Southern Oregon, although most of them are arena riders. How do we attract them to our organization? What steps, actions would you suggest?
Ellie?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about this because I see some room for improvement, at least in our area for this, because I spent a lot of time being an arena rider and being a groom. And while I would see the backcountry horseman signs at shows, which I think is a great idea, it didn't seem very relevant to me. And I think that it would be great to have programs that are more of like an introductory step. Like at least here, like the backcountry horseman is very like packing oriented, and it doesn't have to be in your area. It could be like take care of the trails that you enjoy. I recommend going to barn or like talking to some barns maybe and seeing which ones have active trail riders, and then going and setting up at those shows or advertising there and having things that are more targeted to people who are just starting to do day rides. And then once you hook them with those day rides, they're gonna really get hooked on going into the backcountry.
And like Craig said, small steps, baby steps. I didn't meet Ellie for the first time and say, hey, let's go on this pack trip for 2 weeks. I just she actually had seen me before and I didn't realize it. And then at this first packing clinic she was at, she would keep going out to her car to warm up. And after about the third time, I went to check to make sure she was okay. And so it was just really small steps like that. And it wasn't like, are you okay? Let's go on this pack trip. It's like, are you okay? Period. And small baby steps.
Yeah. Realizing that, yeah, it is a really big step to go from arena riding to going out with a saw and chopping out a bunch of stuff. So having things like meet up at the trailhead and clean that up, or having little programs that can be useful for those people who are starting to take their horse out of the arena. And once people start to enjoy the backcountry and realize that it's not as scary, and I think that that's a big thing for people, is everybody tells me, oh my gosh, you take your horses out on that. And my horses started out as arena horses and they've adapted very well. But at first we were sort of scared, and taking those small steps was really important. You could even have trail rides targeted at maybe not beginner riders, but beginner horses or beginner riders, and have someone in your membership who has a calm older trail horse come out and like limit the size of number of riders to make it, more enjoyable.
And another thing the group of us has talked about is that I always leave them a window of, and Ellie, you might be able to say this better.
And I know what you're talking about. Something that when I was getting into this that was so important is Greg told me that I always stick up for my horse and always say no if I don't want to do something, and that's totally okay. And I think giving people that opportunity, even practicing, like if you have a group of youths, being like, okay, you practice saying no to me if you're not comfortable, because that will really help people calm down and also avoid really bad situations when someone's uncomfortable.
Greg, thank you to you and your panel for some invigorating ideas and discussion. I think many of us have taken away some helpful hints here about engagement, about respect, about continue the invite at all levels all the time, and honor and respect what every volunteer brings to our organization.
Thank you.
Well said.
And so the next thing we have up on tap now dovetails right into this. Let's see, we first of all have, you can check the chat there for comments, a lot of positive comments. We now have Dennis Serpa from the Ad Hoc Membership Committee. This kind of dovetails right into how do you get more youth members? Well, you start by trying to get more members, right, Dennis?
Craig, Marcia was going to take this on as she's on here, I see. So she was leading off, and I'll fill in where needed.
Okay, that's Marcia Copeland.
Correct.
Okay. I'll bring up your charts.
Is Marcia there?
Marcia, come off mute.
There, now I think you can hear me, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Before we start with this, yes, I'm Marcia Copeland. I'm with the Backcountry Horsemen of Missouri. And of course, I do serve on the Ad Hoc Membership Committee. And we've come up with this tool. And it's one of many tools that chapters can use to try to maybe jumpstart your chapter and trying to address the issues that we have nationwide on membership and keeping people engaged. What you're going to see is not rocket science. Most of you already know a lot of this, but we have put it together a way maybe that you can jumpstart your discussion with chapter members. And so this should be a good starting point. Okay, next slide. What we've come to the conclusion is what would really be handy is to develop a membership and retention committee. But before we can even do that, we need to acknowledge a few things that we believe, things that we acknowledge. And these are pretty generic. We all know this, that, you know, our potential membership pool, the people that belong to Backcountry Horsemen, it's rather limited due to our emphasis on one item, and that's access. And with all the other membership groups out there, we know that we're small. If you can afford to have a horse and are involved, it's not like having a bicycle or running shoes. So we are a relatively small group as far as what we pull from. Okay, we know that, we acknowledge that. We also acknowledge that it's our dues paying members that are really the strength and the backbone of our organization. Now tonight you're seeing, and you've seen the different leadership positions and that kind of thing, but it's these people that are on the ground, the people working on the ground, that really where our strength comes from and proves how vital this organization is. Now, why are we not growing at a faster rate? One thing we really need to concentrate on is our chapters. Every chapter, every unit or state must make membership a priority to keep our members, to grow our members, and remind them and tell them our story. And so that's where we're going to go. How can we increase and retain membership? Okay, slide. Okay, this is something we can do right now, and this is what the PowerPoint is about. One thing we can do now is to establish a membership development and Retention Committee. And this committee would be doing a lot of things. There's a lot of things you can do and a lot of things you're already doing. One thing is to really utilize Backcountry Horsemen of Washington's membership handbook. It's an excellent source of material. And if you look at the education structure on the website, BCH website, there's a lot of information on what to do to keep your membership and to grow your membership. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The information is there. We just need to access it and make use of it. Now, we know across the country, different states, different chapters, they're not all the same. So what you're going to see here on these ideas in this PowerPoint is something you can start with, but you'll want to tailor it to your own chapter and its own needs. But here's just a few ideas. And we heard this echoed in the earlier session. Everybody seeks a like-minded community. Everybody wants to be a part of the community, whether they're a young person or older person or whatever. And to do that, we need to make everybody feel acknowledged and heard when they have an issue or just want to talk. Oh, here's another idea. You can create and hand deliver welcome new member packet. And probably a lot of you do that already. Contacting each member by phone with a questionnaire. And this one can be kind of touchy, but we want to know what these new members, what they know and what they want to know. We need to find out about their individual interests, how much they really know about backcountry horsemen, or did they come into this with a different idea? But we need to know their expectations, and they need to know from us as a member what their obligations or needs to be as a member, what they need to give back. Okay, things that we need to do is educate and explain how your chapter works, and every chapter works differently. We recognize that, but they need to know how it's organized and how it functions. Okay, it's obvious that you keep all members aware of planned events, with a calendar of some kind. And another thing you can do to make them feel special, they need to be acknowledged, is personally introduce new members at a chapter meeting. Okay, slide. Okay, let's take a look at our members. What do we have right now? Because we have our seasoned members and we have our newer members. Okay, our seasoned members, you know who you are. You've been working hard for years, just like Greg said, he's been at a long time and working hard. And we don't need to be so concerned about keeping them. They're going to be there. They've been there and they've fought the battles over time. Okay, the problem, time. Some of our warriors it's harder and harder to get on that horse. It's harder and harder to handle that saw. So we need to concentrate, and this PowerPoint is to concentrate on our new members. Okay, when you bring in a new member, they're obviously excited about it or they wouldn't have paid the dues. So they're excited to begin with. So this is going to be our target group, how to keep them educated, engaged, and involved so they can move their status to a seasoned member. And our newest members need guidance. They really need to know what they've signed up for. And the mentoring, you heard Greg talk so much about, or the young ladies talking about how much he influenced them as a mentor. So we need to mentor and really bring these new members along. Sometimes the first motivation, at least in our part of the country, it's been my experience, when you get somebody excited about this organization, their first question is, where can we ride? Not what do you do? So again, it's getting these people educated on what we do, and because BCH is much more than just riding. It's about that access. If we don't have access, we don't have riding. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about the Membership Development and Retention Committee. You can see the 4 characters up there. When you're trying to choose, when you are choosing someone to form this committee, you need to keep several things in mind. There's people that would do a better job than others. Of course, you have Mr. Short Fuse. I don't think that would be a good choice. And you can obviously see who the two people are, or the type of person that you want on these committees. You got Miss Howdy and Mr. Exuberant. The people on this committee needs to have that outgoing, welcoming attitude. And again, we heard this reflected in the earlier session. You want to feel welcome. You want to feel accepted. And every chapter has a large pool of talent. We just need to find those special people that have this real interest and want to do this, and will carry it out and they have the talent to do it. They're all very social. Okay, and this again is the age of social media. At least one member on that committee should be skilled in knowing how to handle Facebook or websites and that kind of thing. The idea of reaching people with just emails anymore and newsletters, it just doesn't do it. We need to be very knowledgeable about how to reach people through the social media. So we need someone on that committee that can do this. Okay, slide. All right, let's talk about the committee duties. Let's say you found your committee, you found that exuberant person, the friendly, the outgoing that want to do this. What are they going to do? What are their duties and responsibilities? Of course, the first thing you need to do is keep your chapter leadership informed on what you're doing, so everybody's on the same page. You need to know, these people need to know Backcountry Horseman very well and its functions and how it functions. They will not be able to communicate to someone new if they really don't know how backcountry works. And it takes some little research in really understanding and thinking about our mission, keeping on mission, but they need to know the answers to these before they can talk to anybody else. And above all, your committee members need to keep all information on a professional level. Respect, we talked about that in the earlier session. You got to have respect for everyone. You don't talk behind people's back. Everyone knows these are very common things. And of course, one of the easiest things to do physically is to create that new member packet that has everything in that packet that someone needs to know, and personally deliver it to the new members, make them feel special. And mentoring. We heard about how influential Greg was in mentoring these young ladies. Mentoring is a big thing. And through friendly interviews with questionnaires and contacting people year to year, making sure they're kept up, let's mentor them. And that would be some of the duties of these members of this committee. Okay, next. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the packet, the new member packet, what's in it. Again, this is very common knowledge. It should contain any kind of information needed for two members to know the purpose and what's going on. And you would tailor this to your own chapter. It's different across the country, and this is how you can tailor this to fit. Okay, some of the things that of course it would include would be a welcome letter, first off, and to know who your leadership is and the contact information. If they have a question, they need a quick answer, they would have at their fingertips the contact information for their leadership. Depending on your state, you might want state and chapter bylaws. This is all going to be the decision of the particular area in the state or chapter that's doing this. Okay, and it's obvious again that the information that your new members need to know is what's going on and when. You have a calendar of work events and other meetings. And this is one that kind of is amusing. The dues renewal schedule. I know here we publish every time over and over again the schedule for dues. And we still get people saying, well, I didn't receive any information. You know, they need to know ahead of time the schedule of dues and take that on as their responsibility to follow through. And in the new member package, you might want to include a history of backcountry horsemen. It's got such a rich history unusual. We're a different organization than anywhere else, but the history, it has such important information to share. Okay, and the last one I feel is important, that when you're talking to a new member and they say, where can I ride? Okay, let's make sure that they understand what they're signing up for. They can be excited, but let's make sure they understand what they're in for, what they're excited, what their or their own responsibilities are, because it's a two-way street. People don't join, hopefully, and just sit there and want to be entertained. This is a give and take. So they need to know what their membership responsibilities is back to the organization. So these can be a little touchy and have to be handled well. Okay, slide. Okay, we talked about a questionnaire. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Of course, obviously, when you talk to a new member, you want to get their contact information, their phone numbers, making sure that their email address is correct and how we can contact them. And again, asking them about their specific interests. People like to feel like they're being heard. They want to share things. Most people want to share with you about themselves. And we need to be interested in them and what their specific interests are. You might ask, if appropriate, to share their background. And again, this has to be handled correctly and professionally. They may want to share that, they may not, but this is where we learn what kind of interests and skills they have. You may be talking to a member and not even know that, by golly, they know how to write grants. And this is where you learn about their skills and where we can involve them more. People want to be involved to feel a part of a community and encourage them to talk about themselves. Of course, that's a two-edged sword. You've got some people who don't like to talk, and then you've got some who you can't stop them from talking, but we still need to engage them. You could quiz a member on what their expectations are, find out what they know or what they don't know, and help them learn. And this is all things to be creative. There's a million things you can do, and you get the idea. Okay, slide. Okay, membership retention committee. Here's more to consider. And we continually ask ourselves why our membership is declining. Okay, here's some things to think about. Why is that? Is it that our general member population is aging and they have nothing to contribute? Oh, nothing could be further from the truth. People who have been members for a long time and maybe are just getting tired and they think, well, I can't go out and handle that chainsaw anymore. And I can't go get on horseback and ride and do some of these things. Well, they don't have to. These people, if they're just the checkbook members, are invaluable in being able to provide the source of income that it takes to run an organization. But what's important is their knowledge and their experience and their ability to mentor. And there's multiple avenues and needs for mentors, for example, to young people, or to everyone, actually. Okay, here's something. Do some of them feel disconnected, discouraged, and undervalued? So they say, well, I didn't see anything that meant anything to me, so I'm not going to renew. Again, we need to know our members and work to engage all, have something to do for all of them to do. And that's a tough thing, but you've got to keep people engaged and feel like they have an opportunity to contribute and be a part of that like-minded community. Okay, and maybe there's some members who want more than working on trails. I've heard people say, well, I don't want to join backcountry because all you do is work. Well, we talk about, when we first talk about backcountry to many new people, we talk about going out and cleaning trails and this and that. And it sounds like that's all they do is work. And so remember, they're looking for a community. So maybe it needs to be more social, more fun. And that would be an easy thing to do. Add some more social fun events, add it to your calendar, and don't just talk about, oh yeah, we work. stress it's, there's other things too. And of course, in the earlier session, we talked about the younger packers and riders. Where are they? We're going to have to think outside of our group. We get so comfortable with our own small group. And I think it was so important what Greg and the young ladies were talking about, being considered and looking at these young people and consider them equals. And they are. And not talking down to them. There's nothing more devastating than talk down to a young person and make them feel unimportant. There's other ways to find them. You can use social media, 4-H clubs, FFA chapters. You can be creative. They're out there. And I strongly believe if they knew about us, they would want to be involved. But it's got to be attractive. It's got to be welcoming. Okay, slide. Okay, who are our members? Well, our valued members, actually everyone is. We have our work crews. We have our packers. And you heard a lot about packing as far as young people were concerned in the earlier session. Not all states have the opportunity to have packing clinics because we don't have the packing, well, there's just not the trails that have the long distance packing trails or whatever. But what we do have, everyone can take the interest and teach trail ethics. There's a million things we can do. Okay, our chefs, we're always enjoy our chefs with the Dutch oven cooking. We have our checkbook members, which are invaluable. And then we have that shy member who's been there for quite a while. They never make any noise. They just continue working, but they're shy. Give them a compliment. Keep them involved. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's a list of resources that I'd like you to consider, and your computer is going to be your best friend. BCHA is a great resource and material in the educational resources. And again, I want to stress the Backcountry Horsemen of Washington Membership Development Handbook. It takes what we've been talking about and adding meat to it, adding something, actual ideas and ways to accomplish this. It's divided into 5 different goals, and it goes into great detail on how to reach these goals by giving you ideas and giving you other resources. But one of the goals is developing leadership in the chapters and on a state level. Okay, that's exactly what we need. It will cover that and give you lots of good information. The second goal is elevating public awareness, and that's something we need to do. Make us known, give us, we are a well-kept secret. We've always said that, but there's a whole chapter in the handbook that just on elevating our awareness. The third goal they have is increasing the prospective member through the first encounter. And that's kind of what we're talking about with this tool that you could use. When the first time you meet them, they're going to make a decision, and they're either going to be impressed or they're not. So we need to step out there and let them know what we do and how important they would be to become members. And then once they are members, make sure they enjoy doing what they're doing and we appreciate them. Okay, the fourth goal in the handbook is enhancing retention. Again, something we're talking about. And the fifth one, augmenting attendance at chapter events. So I encourage you strongly to take a look at this membership development handbook, because like I say, it has a lot of detailed information that goes way beyond just these ideas that we're talking about here in this PowerPoint. You can also learn how to use Facebook. You can find anything in some of our educational architecture. But what we would like to see as the ad hoc committee is for you to take this PowerPoint to each of your chapters, talk about it, and develop your own committee that will go out and try to capture these new people, but even more try to make your current members feel a part of it and appreciated. Okay, another way to find information is, of course, Mr. Google. You can Google retention of nonprofit membership, and there's tons of information out there. Now, the strategies are pretty general, but they're a good information, and they will not be Backcountry Horseman specific. It'll be in every kind of nonprofit organization you can imagine. But one of the easiest ways is be creative. Just ask your current membership what they're experiencing in joining and what it was like, and learn from what we've done in the past and maybe improve on that. So our hope is, as far as the ad hoc committee, is that you will take this PowerPoint to your chapters, give it a go, and see if we can get some committees. And when you're looking for these committee members, if you go to the leadership already in your chapters, they're probably overworked. Look outside of that. Find these people that are not doing anything and you didn't even know that they had these skills. Kind of poll your membership and say, would you be interested in this? And see where it goes. But that is our hope, that you can take this and use it as a tool, only one tool. There's lots of other things, and see where it goes. Okay, that's it.
We have some questions on chat. It says, what do some groups put in the new member packet? I think there's the listing is in the Washington Development Handbook, but it can be things like meeting schedules, calendars, the bylaws, those kinds of things. And Terry Haver was asking about the education architecture is from the old website. You can go to the education page and there's a link there to that architecture. We now call it the education resource list, but it's still there.
Dennis, do you have anything that you want to add? I guess he didn't hear me.
He needs to unmute. Dennis, unmute.
He has his earphones off.
Okay, I'm here. Yeah, like I say, our whole presentation here is to get each chapter to develop this membership retention committee. Whoever's in charge of your membership is usually just one person, and they are usually overwhelmed with the amount of work they have to do just to keep membership dues and information out there. So we're encouraging the chapters to create a committee so you have 2 or 3 people involved with membership, and that way you can do these things, the questionnaires and the new member packet. And those are the things that we have found that will encourage some of those members to stay with the program, stay with our organization, and get more involved. So we encourage you to get the right people involved and start this membership committee.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for attending the second night of the webinar, and we hope that you found some nuggets in here for your use in the future. And I'm sure that the moderators for these sessions would be happy to, if you contact them by email with questions, etc., we can follow up afterwards. And we have one other. And I think that's about it on the chat as well. So, Madam Vice, anything for us?
No, I enjoyed it. It was really nice to see or know that we had this many participants. It was the second of the series of webinars. We have the third one tomorrow night, so I would encourage everyone to participate in that too. But thank you, everyone, for taking your time to participate with us. We certainly appreciate it, and that's how we learn from each other. So hopefully you had found something interesting you can take back to your states and chapters, and would welcome any feedback. You can email Daryl, myself, Craig as education chairman, Mark as treasurer, Michelle as administrator. If you have comments, we would welcome them, or if you need any further information. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, everyone.
And we have a question from Aaron about the webinar recording. We'll be getting that out. I think Michelle will be providing the link. So thank you all very much.
Good night.